Hi everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to the post-game analysis of Game 2 of the best of 3 channel show match between GosuDad and QuailGang. Q Phoenix versus Fontaine, Terran versus Zerg on the map Shakuris Plateau. Hi everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to the 4-player map Shakuris Plateau and my post-game analysis of Game 2 of that best of 3 show match between the GosuDad channel and the QuailGang channel. Q Phoenix versus Fontaine. That is myself versus Aaron of the QuailGang casting trio. This is Aaron's base in the upper left-hand corner of Shakuris Plateau. And moving across over to the upper right-hand side, you can see my base playing as Terran in the blue, in the teal, I guess, as against Fontaine playing Zerg in the red. So Fontaine sending out his scouting overlord, his very first overlord, scouting to the close by ground position from himself over to here, and should be seeing a scout of some sort going over to the close by air position, which is where he will find me. So this drone heading out looking for that. You can see that rally point being nestled directly underneath my command center. And just earlier we got to see that extractor trick there, so the 10th drone can be turned into an extractor, allowing the production of a drone, the start of production of a drone from this larva, allowing him to sneak in 11 drones with only one overlord. So a second overlord coming out. I'm guessing this is probably coming down here to scout out his natural. Now this map choice, Shakuris Plateau, this scouting drone just making it in before this wall is finished off, was recommended, begged for by myself playing Q Phoenix here, so I can do a wall-off, a normal wall-off with the 2 supply depots and 1 barracks, a much smaller ramp. Using the insert and delete keys, we can see a much smaller ramp to the main base compared to before, that game we had on Terminus, that very fateful game here. And oh, another drone kill from this SCV who barely survives with 5 hit points. So that's Q Phoenix showing off his wonderful drone worker killing abilities. Early hatch coming down from Fontaine. I think that's about the same timing as before, about that 16-17 supply mark. And Q Phoenix still staying on 1 barracks, hasn't built a second yet, starting to build up minerals. So, you know, it's been such a long time since I played and watched this game. Can't necessarily remember exactly what happened, and before we get too far into this game, even though it's 3 minutes in, I am kind of treating this like a normal cast instead of the post-game analysis that it's supposed to be. So at this point, let me say, let us pause the game real quick, pause, and say before it gets too far, head over to the QuailGang channel, or more specifically, click on the link that's in the YouTube video description in my blog, hopefully, possibly in an annotation on the video, going to their live cast version of this game, where they casted this game live. That they, meaning the other 2 remaining members of QuailGang, that being Tony and Adrian. I looked up your name. I sure hope that's right. It's like in a notepad, in a text file somewhere. Hopefully that's right, but go over to their channel, check out that game, watch that, then come back here and we will talk about this game in more detail. So releasing that pause button, because this is actually a full-length game instead of the short 9-minute embarrassing experience from last time. So now this SCV is going to be able to see that early evolution chamber, which doesn't really tell him anything. I'm not sure that he saw if he saw that rear spawning pool. Let's just hit the V. I did see that, and I will see it right now, so I can see that the spawning pool is about halfway through. So at this point, I'm building a barracks off to the left here. Not sure why I did that, and you know, to be honest, I am not exactly sure what I am doing now. Just as a reminder note from before, this SCV down here watching this southern Zelnaga tower. Now that's kind of an interesting choice, but I was, from playing the first game, I was, you know, on tilt going into that first game, and then definitely on tilt going into the second game, as I was, you know, and I'm not too sure about that. I guess kind of mixed feelings, because on one hand, I may have been on tilt because I had lost so definitively in that first game. But it almost seems like that first game was like a fluke. You know, it was a map I wasn't used to, the entrance ramp, I wasn't used to that, and I had a failed double attempt to try to reseal that wall. So I'm not sure how much of what you're seeing here is a reaction to that first game, as much of it's me trying to kind of go back to the game style that I had played and practiced a lot on the online ladder, which was essentially that bring your own Banshee build. So I'm not seeing a factory here, so it looks like I didn't decide to go that route. And building a Reaper, that's kind of a surprise there. So Fontaine building a couple of Zerglings. He's got, I'm assuming, double queen on both of his hatcheries at this point, and going for a second gas. No gas at the expansion yet. So this is where we start to see the Silver Leagueness of Aaron come out here. Not only did he do an early expand, but that early expand, the expansion with the gas that comes with it, will allow him to do some higher tier strategies, such as using Mutalisk, which cost 100 gas each, or using Banelings, which are very good against Marines. Now the counter for the Banelings typically is to use tanks. Tanks do the area of effect damage. They have a long range, so they can kind of damage the Banelings as they're coming in. So you use the Marines to kind of kite the Banelings around, and the tanks kill off the Banelings. And the typical counter to Mutalisk is to use Marines with stem. And so at this point you can see, wow, is that 5 barracks? Wow, 5 barracks, so I guess that's my solution for that. Now these Reapers, that's kind of a surprise here. These guys, let's try to focus on them. Oh, they're kind of cool. These guys are very good at harassment. They can jump up and down these cliffs, which is great, but you know, you can see Fontaine here with an Overlord. He's going to be able to see them as soon as they jump down. And Fontaine building up some Zerglings over here at that upper Zelnaga tower. Now one of the things that's really cool, oh, he killed off that SCV on the southern side, so I think Q Phoenix has no vision, as I talk about myself in the weird third person. I have no vision of what's going on there, although, oh, these Reapers went out, and I don't think Fontaine saw that at all because he had moved this Overlord south. So those Reapers are going to be able to come in and do some damage, except for the fact that they're just going to hang out right here. So you got a bunch of Zerglings building up, a lot of gas being saved up by Fontaine, so should be seeing those turned into Banelings. And again, here I go again casting this, not like a post-game analysis that we have seen before, so... Although I do admit, again, having not seen this casted a long time, it's like I'm seeing it for the first time. So we have a very full mineral saturation here. Again, Silver League players doing very good with that. Now these Zerglings are going to try to come up here, but Q Phoenix has 2 bunkers, wow, and a bunch of defensive units, including Reapers, which do a lot of ground damage. Now these Reapers are going to be coming in here into the back. So here we start to see Q Phoenix's some of those decision-making things which make him at the upper Bronze League level, in that he's trying to use harassment to pull his opponent back into his base, but that's not really working at all. You can see that Fontaine is using his Silver League worker management skills to keep his workers on the line and hold off that harassment. 3 Reapers with just 1 Queen. Now that may have been a little tight there for that Queen, but you know, the Zerg units do heal over time. So now Q Phoenix back in his base, a bunch of units just spread out here, which really that does him no good to have them out there. But he's really worried about this bunch of Zerglings. Now remember, those Zerglings came up to the front of the base to try to hit it and do some damage against these buildings, which Q Phoenix really should be repairing these. And you can see Fontaine doing a very good job of keeping track of when Q Phoenix moves out to this base. Now there is some concern that Q Phoenix may have tried to ninja expand somewhere else, which is exactly what Fontaine's doing over here in the lower left-hand corner, which is another very good idea. You know, Q Phoenix having put just a little bit of pressure out with those Reapers, now a whole ton of Reapers going on, not sure. I cannot remember what I was doing with that. I don't even see a factory finally going down. So that's pretty late, and an engineering bay finally going down with some research happening there. So Fontaine, I expect he is morphing the hatchery into the layer that is finished, so should be seeing a spire coming up pretty quickly. He had a spine crawler back here to help with further harassment. I don't see any other defenses down here in the natural, but I also don't see any harvesters on the gas. So he does have 700 gas built up, so that can be used for either Banelings or Mutalisks. He's got a bunch of Zerglings spread around the map, and there they go, turning into Banelings. I can't remember what I had as a defense for this. Looks like I'm still working off of a bunch of barracks. Marauders are just starting to come out, which those are pretty good. I haven't researched Concussive Shell yet, so that's not as good as it could be as far as slowing Banelings down. Marauders can tank a lot of damage. They can receive a lot of damage and still survive, so they can basically soak up damage from the Banelings. So those are pretty good to have in a Baneling situation, but I don't see stim researched yet for those Marines, which is crucial for those Mutalisks. We go over to the... oh, it looks like a bunch of Reapers came into the back, and I'm not quite sure how much they... And yeah, see, once those Reapers get surrounded, they really... their super fast movement speed doesn't matter. I think they cleaned up a couple of drones down here. Let's check out that kill tab. Wow, 24 workers killed. So those Reapers did a pretty good job, but you see, at this point, I'm still stuck back on my base. Let's check out that army supply tab again. We can see the worker supply. We're still very similar. Now, Fontaine has a little bit of an income advantage on me, as we can look here at this tab. Now, you'll notice that I'm not really, let me check out that income again. Oh, that's actually pretty close. My mineral income's actually higher. That's kind of surprising. So here, finally doing a move out with a whole bunch of Marines down here, which I mean, these guys can take that out pretty quickly. I'm not even sure that he necessarily saw those guys move out. But here they go. They really need to back up, especially when the Baileys start going. Are they going to back up at all? I'm not seeing them back up whatsoever. Here they go. Backing up, trying to prevent the, into the bunker, nope, oh no! And 4 Bailings left. Wow. So that was a very good assault. Oh, and you can see the command center trying to move back. Wow, those 4 Banelings actually could have done a ton of damage in this mineral line. Now, if we check back at the kill tab, we see workers killed, units killed. It's. I don't think it's even at this point, especially because the 3rd base for Fontaine is up and he's starting to mine from it. So this. Again, is just a really good example of him doing a very good job of really monitoring the expansion of the Terran player to this natural expansion. So if you remember in the other game, we talked about how Zerg likes to early expand because, you know, in a sense their units are squishier. They need to have a macro. It's typical for them to try to have a macro advantage over their Terran opponent. And see, here he is sneaking these guys behind here, behind these shrubbery things that hide vision to them. But if I get any kind of unit up here, I'll be able to see back here to what he's doing. But so again, going back to what I was talking about, interesting, going to a planetary defense. I kind of remember that. Kind of going back to what I was saying about the Zerg liking to be 1 base up. So once he builds that, oh, and you can see these Marauders really tank. Wow, look at that. See, the Marauders really, look at that. Wow, the Marauders took a lot of damage and didn't die. And that's the Marauders' tanking abilities in action there. But again, so once he's on 2 base, that puts pressure on the Terran player to expand. So that's why he was keeping a pretty constant eye on when I was coming up to this expansion. And when he saw that he had delayed me enough, he went ahead and expanded to a 3rd. So this gives him a huge income advantage. Although I would expect it to be a greater advantage than this. Okay, there come the drones. So he should be getting a pretty massive income advantage, right? He's got, you know, almost double gas of what I've got, and with the mules and stuff on that 2nd mineral line, I'm able to keep up, but he should be back to making drones. Let's take a look at that army tab and see where he's at. He's about 47. I think the typical max that players will build is about 60. So this pulls us into that kind of that mid-game stage of the match, which you don't honestly get to see very much in Bronze League. Usually the games only last till maybe the start of this first expansion, and then there's some big push that ends the game. But here in the Silver League, we get to see this mid-game quite a bit. So you see that Fontaine is maintaining map control with these Zerglings here. Let's hit the V tab and we can kind of see what he can see. See, he's monitoring. He's got a burrowed Zergling here, so he can monitor when I move out to the 3rd expansion, which that's a typical location there. He's also got a burrowed Zergling over here in this other 3rd location. So he'll know when I'm moving out to a 3rd. Now, before I move out to a 3rd, he is at an economic advantage here because he's got 3 bases to 2 bases. So he'll know when he needs to expand or he needs to do some kind of damage to me economically when I move out to that 3rd. Now, at this point, I'm still playing in a turtled mode. I've got a lot of defensive units back here at now the 2nd wall, because before I had a wall up here, now I have a wall down here at this natural. So at this point, I'm still effectively turtling, even though the Bronze League player might look at this and go, "Oh, hey, he's expanding. You know, he's really good," or whatever. That's actually not the case. I'm actually behind economically at this point. And even if we look at the army tab, army supply-wise, I'm only slightly ahead of his. Now, one interesting thing to note is that, and it's one thing that they kind of mentioned in the cast itself. Notice that the Spire is up and researching upgrades already, and he's got Mutalisks on the way. That's a very crucial evolving in this game, and I'm starting to put down missile turrets. I think I just kind of suspected those Mutalisks may be coming. Wow, I see a flock of them already. Wow. See, there you go. So, Baneling Mutalisk, or Mutalisk, Mutalisk Zergling Baneling here. And I think I may have seen these guys coming up, but they're going to come in here, and this is a completely undefended mineral line, although these minerals are mostly mined out. So, but this is a pretty good flock of banelings. You've got about 13, or not banelings, Mutalisks, 13 here. They should be able to clean this up and cause a terrible amount of damage. They can even take out missile turrets that are by themselves, no problem. So at this point, I could probably GG, and that would be a safe assumption at this point, but of course this is a show match, and of course I'm trying to make up for the fact that I lost that first game. So here we see the little Sim City setup not working very well for these Marines, and their stim has been researched for them finally, so that's good. But we'll see if these missile turrets are going to be able to do a lot of damage here, but not as much as they need to. I took the SCVs off the line and told them to auto-repair, but they ended up repairing each other because the splash damage from these Mutalisks were damaging the SCVs. And look at that, they're all bunched up behind her, not able to repair that missile turret. So, yeah, total micro control of that situation. These Marines will be able to come in and clean up those Mutalisks, and if we check out the units lost count over here, we can kind of see what's going on there. So at this point, I have been able to kill a lot more resources. The resource value of the units killed is, much higher, so I've done a good job there. But he has a lot more resources than I do. If you look at the income tab, at this point I'm not mining any gas. That's a huge problem, and his mineral income is double mine. I'm actually surprised his mineral income isn't higher. I guess he's been putting all of his drones over here on gas. We've got 3 and 3, so at this point he's becoming gas limited. And if you look on my point, I'm gas limited as well, because all I have is a bunch of minerals. But yeah, so Adrian just doing a really good job of keeping an eye on the map, maintaining map control, keeping control of that Xel'Naga Tower. Oh, that's right, I forgot about this. Cute little thing here. He doesn't realize I have this bottom Xel'Naga Tower, so I actually can see. This is my... Actually, that's Fontaine's vision. Look at my vision. I can actually see this group here, so I know that there's a bunch of... I can see this huge army over here. These Marines get killed, and I know that there's this massive army waiting out in the middle. And that's a perfect strategy for Fontaine, because he can keep these a massive army around here. He's got these creep terminals that are expanding this creep, so he can see more of the map. Again, if we go back to his vision and you look at the mini-map, he can see most of the map. And he's got these little burrowed Zerglings at all these different expansions, so he'll know when I expand. So he's got complete control of the map and of the game at this point, and now he's already expanded to this 4th position. So that was kind of an interesting choice, right? He did a ninja expansion out here, which is the furthest away from his base, but that makes it safe for him to put his 4th expansion down here. So at this point, again, far ahead. At this point I could GG, but that's one of the crucial things, like I mentioned before, about these kind of the lower league play. Even in Silver League, there are Silver League players that, given the opportunity in the late game, may make mistakes, and that's one of the kind of knife edge things about playing Zerg that makes me so nervous playing Zerg. And when I played Zerg in Season 7 and now in Season 8, is that it's kind of a knife edge, because the Terran player units, those Marines, I mean, actually this is a pretty good Mutalisk ball up here, but those Marines stemmed can take out, do so much damage against these expensive units like these Mutalisks, and the Zerg player will be at a disadvantage. If we look at the army count here, he's ahead on army by only about maybe 20, maybe 25 supply. So that means that my army clustered together is actually stronger than his, because the Terran units are stronger supply count. On even supply count, the Terran units are stronger. But of course you see here the advantage of the Zerg units like the Mutalisks is that they are extremely versatile and mobile, and they're going to be able to clean up this group of Banshees. Again, expensive units for myself. But that's going to be a very favorable exchange on his part, and you can see my supply going down even further there, because a lot of my supply was caught up in those Banshees. And that's one of the differences between the two races, of course, is that the tanks are very strong on the ground, the Banshees are very strong against ground units, but not against air. And so even though I have a pretty good army count, with his control of the map, unless he just makes a huge, massive mistake, brings in the Mutalisks and doesn't attack with them or something like that, he's got this game down. I mean, he could expand to a 5th and be fine. I'm not even sure. I can't remember if he does that or not. But again, by expanding the creep in the middle of the map and having all of these units kind of in the middle, right? I mean, if you have a ball of units right here, if we look at the minimap, if you have a ball of units here in the middle, and especially if they're mutalist, they can run and attack any intercepting group, and that gives you the entire reign of the map on this side. That's 6 different expansions that he can control. And here he is using those mutalists to an awesome effect, and then sprinting away. Now, notice when he sprints away, this is an interesting thing about this Zerg-Terran matchup, is these Zerg units can heal over time. So if we just take a look at these mutalists, slowly over time they're healing. You can see that hit point counters slowly increasing over time. Now, these Marines without medevacs, every time they stim, they're taking damage that's never going to be healed, that's never going to be repaired. And so, in this case, where Fontaine is just moving in around the map, I'm pointing with my hand that you cannot see, as Fontaine moves around the map with these mutalists, that's going to keep me, it's going to force me to have to micromanage these Marines to try to keep up with them and try to keep him moving the mutalists around. But, you know, on his side, he can send the mutalists in, set a couple of waypoints, have them kill a couple of things, and then leave, not wasting any time watching that happen. And I'm forced to micromanage these Marines around the base and try to manage that defense myself, which that attention gets taken away from managing any kind of attack. I mean, I've got all these siege tanks set up to fight a ground army that in his case is playing defensive. So I've got, you know, a siege tanks that are set up to defend a ground army when, you know, he's just got a massive ball of mutalists. If we check out the units tab, we can see that his mutalist count is up to 44. At this point, that ball is basically invincible unless he makes some huge, colossal mistake. So at this point in the game, you know, it's just a matter of GG on Q Phoenix's side, which I think you saw that in the live cast. But again, it's just interesting to see the dynamics here of these players and this matchup in general, because, you know, unlike a pro gamer where he would be able to take these Marines and micromanage them and send troops to different locations, you know, a Silver Bronze League player just can't do that. I've heard a lot of some, I guess, complaining, criticism, something like that, about Terran being very difficult to play in the lower leagues, because their advantage is in the Marine Marauder medevac ball is very powerful in small groups, which means that you have to have a lot of multitasking to be able to manage all those groups. But when you're down here in the Silver Bronze League, it's very difficult to manage all those things. Now, of course, I would say that a lot of the Zerg players that I met in Bronze League, you're just playing with me. Okay, that's me being a little snarky there, I think, and GG in there, sending tanks in to die. But yeah, interesting game. But yeah, down in Bronze League Zergs tend to stay on just one base. And at that point, you know, one base Terran versus one base Zerg, the advantage is in the Terran's favor. So yeah, I think you have a lot of Terran players moving up from Bronze into Silver and suddenly finding out, whoa, the game is totally different up here, because the Zerg players will expand. And that forces the Terran player to expand, and that forces both players to do some micromanagement. So let's jump into that postgame before I start talking too much. GosuDad, see you later. Wow, so that was a pretty interesting game. Again, you know, tried to keep the speed running, so I didn't get to stop and talk about a lot of things, but we did apparently got to talk quite a bit. So, yeah, I think just a very good example of that Bronze League, Silver League, Terran versus Zerg, that metagame. You know, you got the Terran player used to playing on one base, now trying to move out and expand to that second base, and the Silver League Zerg player, as you can see here, expanding to a great many locations, and that forces him, as you can see this camera move around. This is Fontaine's view, his camera vision. You can see him moving around the map, having to keep track of a lot of things at once. I mean, here you can just see right there, he's trying to continue to keep up with his creep spreading across the map, and that just shows that in the Silver League, you're going to have a lot more multitasking involved. And, you know, even very quickly, playing even Terran against Terran, you're going to see it, you know, wow, look at that burrow Zergling over there watching over that expansion, just perfect control whatsoever from Fontaine there. So yeah, just a very basic example of Terran versus Zerg in the Silver League. And, you know, the Terran player, if you're not aggressive enough, that Zerg is just going to be able to expand across the map, and you know, the Silver League, the Zerg knows to do that, and that's kind of their plan. A lot of players in Silver League playing Zerg like to go for that macro style, build a lot of bases, expand across the map, and even though you can build a nice death ball back at your Terran turtle base, by then you'll have in a base race situation, which is where the Zerg kind of, you know, will excel at, by sending their mutalisks and faster units around the map, trying to hit your base while you've moved that death ball out. They will have expanded to so many places it's going to take you a while to kill all of their bases. So yeah, it's a good game. Congratulations to Fontaine for winning that show match, and thanks again so much to QuailGang for essentially hosting this show match and organizing it and putting it together, and their cast and their shoutouts to this channel and shoutouts right back to their channel as well. And yeah, I think that's it for GosuDad. Again, you can check out my blog at GosuDad.blogspot.com, and please follow me on Twitter at GosuDad. We will see you guys later. Coming up next is a 2v2 sent to me by 30511, who used to be doing a StarCraft vlog. Apparently it's gone now, so we'll be checking that out next. GosuDad signing off. We'll see you guys later.